November 23, variant 3, paper 4. The first question, figure 1.1 is a diagram of an insect pollinated flower. Use the information to complete. Insect pollination, very easy. Labels of the flower. A is the stigma. B is the petals. C is the anther. D is the filament. E is the ovule inside the ovary. F is the sepals. كده we said all the labels. السؤال A is the stigma. What does the stigma do? It catches the pollen grains. Catches the pollen grains. Okay. B, petals. What does the petals do? It is colorful to attract the insects. F is the small green leaves at the bottom. These are the sepals. What do the sepals do? They protect the flower while it is above. السؤال the following question, state the names of the two structures that form the stamen in the flower. الstamen, it is the male reproductive system. What is the stamen formed of? الstamen is formed of anther and filament. The top part is the anther and the rest is the filament. But what about the female reproductive system? All together, it's called the carpel. It is formed of stigma, style, and ovary. Stigma, style, and ovary. Okay. Describe the stages in the reproduction of a flowering plant from self-pollination till fertilization. Self-pollination till fertilization. Okay, the first thing is to tell him what is self-pollination. It is the transfer of the pollen grain from the anther of the flower to the stigma of the same flower. After the transfer, after the pollen grain arrives at the stigma, what happens? It starts forming a pollen tube by secreting enzymes which digests its pathway. Pollen tube. The pollen tube, okay, enters inside the ovary into the ovule through the micropyle, which is the small hole, and delivers the male nucleus to the female nucleus so that they could fuse together in fertilization. يبقى I have 5 marks. I have to write as much as possible. The first thing, I told him that the pollen grain will be transferred from the anther, here it's the anther, from the anther of the flower to the stigma of the same flower. And then it grows a pollen tube. Male nucleus moves down the pollen tube through the style and the ovary. It goes into the micropyle وبعدين into the ovule. The male nucleus fuses with the female nucleus, and this is what we call fertilization. Straightforward question, advantages and disadvantages of self-pollination compared with cross-pollination. يبقى الادvantages of the self-pollination, which is considered a type of sexual reproduction, however, it occurs in the same organism. What do we say? No need for pollinating agents because it's inside the same flower. Less waste of pollen grains. More chance of pollination. More chance of fertilization. طب what about the disadvantage? The disadvantage إن هو نفس الparent, which means that you will have less variation, less evolution and adaptation to the changing environment, and more risk of genetic diseases because this is considered from the same family. يعني the two parents are from the same family. So there is more risk of recessive alleles, more frequency of recessive alleles in babies.
Doctor?
Question 2, diagram of a cross-section of part of a leaf. Identify and explain how structures J and K are adapted. Easy question. The first layer of cells is the upper epidermis. So what about this layer on top? This is the cuticle. It's a waxy layer and it's not cells. But the upper epidermis, what does it do? It's a layer of flat, transparent cells to allow the light to pass to the palisade mesophyll. What about K? All of this is called the vascular bundle. The top part with thick walls, it is the xylem vessels. Xylem vessels. What are the adaptations of the xylem vessels? They are long, thin, hollow, no cross walls to allow the easy flow of water. يبقى J is the upper epidermis. It's transparent to allow the light to pass. K is the xylem vessels and it's hollow with no cross walls to allow the transport of water. Okay. In an experiment, tail cress plants were grown in normal atmospheric and high carbon dioxide concentrations. The transpiration rate, the mean number of chloroplasts per cell, and the concentrations of starch and magnesium ions were measured. He measured lots of stuff. Okay, what does he want me to do? Complete the sentence about the data shown. The table shows increasing carbon dioxide concentration causes more starch to be produced in the leaves. This shows that at normal carbon dioxide concentration, carbon dioxide is a what for photosynthesis? Again, he says that when you increase carbon dioxide, more starch is released, which means that when you increase carbon dioxide, more photosynthesis occurs. So, if you have normal carbon dioxide concentration, which is low, then we say that the carbon dioxide is a what for photosynthesis? So we will say it's a limiting factor since it controls the rate of photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, molecules of carbon dioxide are required to make one molecule of glucose. If you remembered the balanced equation for photosynthesis, we need 6 carbon dioxide, 6 water. It will give me 1 molecule of glucose and 6 oxygen. So here I need 6 molecules of carbon dioxide. 6 molecules of carbon dioxide. The greater the quantity of starch stored in the leaves grown in high concentration of carbon dioxide means when needed, more sucrose can be produced for transport. So the leaf acts as a what? Of course, it is a source since it is where the food will come from. So it is a source. Okay. The great number of chloroplasts per cell in the leaves grown in the higher carbon dioxide concentration means that more energy can be absorbed from chloroplasts, absorbs energy from sunlight and transferred into light energy is transferred into chemical energy, which is the food, which is the starch. Any food is considered chemical energy. The transpiration rate is lower when the carbon dioxide concentration is higher. Transpiration is lower when the carbon dioxide concentration is higher. This means reduced loss of what from the leaves? Okay? It has to be water vapor because transpiration, vapor, it has to be water vapor because it leaves as a gas in transpiration. Magnesium ion is lower in these leaves because they have used the magnesium ions to make chlorophyll. We only have 2 ions that we need to know. We need to know that the nitrates are used for proteins and that chlorophyll is used for, and that magnesium is used for chlorophyll. Okay? Chlorophyll. Okay. Question 3, complete the table by writing in the percentages of carbon dioxide and oxygen. Carbon dioxide and oxygen. Inhaled and exhaled air, easy questions. In the inhaled air, we have 0.04 carbon dioxide, while the exhaled air, we have 4%. Here we have 21% oxygen. Here we have 16. Type. Another thing the scientists measure is the number of dust particles. He found that the inhaled air has lots of dust, but the exhaled air coming out from inside your body has less dust. Where did the dust go? Suggest a reason. Okay, trapped by the nose hair, or I can say trapped by the mucus Sticky mucus traps the dust and the bacteria. This is why the exhaled air does not have dust.
معلش
Okay.
دكتور ممكن
Figure 3.1 is a diagram of the alveoli associated with the blood vessels. Explain how the structure of the capillary is related to its function. Capillaries بقى, blood capillaries. How is it adapted to its function? Number one, there are many capillaries, okay, large surface area. We have thin walls of capillaries. The capillary has the thinnest wall in order to allow diffusion. I also have small lumen. A small lumen allows the blood cells to be close to the wall. Okay, small lumen. It allows the blood cell to be close to the wall, and so we will have shorter distance of diffusion, more diffusion. Okay, يبقى careful because he says here, explain how the structure of the capillary is related to its function. ايه الفانكشن بتاع capillary? Function of the capillary is diffusion. طب what does it have to allow diffusion? Thin walls, small lumen for shorter distance of diffusion, slow blood flow to give time for diffusion, anything that helps diffusion. I can also say there is small gaps or holes in the wall of the capillary to allow the diffusion. State the name of the component of the blood that transports oxygen. What transports oxygen in the blood? Of course, it is red blood cells. What is the name of the blood vessel that transports blood from the heart towards the lungs? From the heart to the lungs. This is the pulmonary artery. From the heart to the lungs, it is the pulmonary artery that comes out of the right ventricle. Location and function of cartilage in the breathing system. Where is the cartilage in the breathing system? We have two places. Either you can say trachea or bronchi. Why? Trachea or bronchi? What is the function of the cartilage? The cartilage is a relatively harder structure than the soft tissue. It's a bit more firm. So it keeps the trachea opened, prevents collapse. Why do I want it open? To allow the air to flow. A student measured the rate and the depth of breathing of an athlete for 30 seconds at rest. This is the rate of breathing for 30 seconds at rest. He told you that this is one breath. Okay? Use the information to calculate the rate of breathing. How many breaths do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 breaths فقد إيه؟ In 30 seconds. 6 breaths in 30 seconds. طب if I want the rate per minute, it will be 12 breaths. 12 breaths. If you calculated it as 13, it was also accepted. 12 or 13, it is accepted. Okay? The measurements were repeated while the athlete was running on a treadmill. ابتدى يجري بقى على treadmill. اوكي طبعا ايه اللي هيحصل؟ Rate of breathing هيزيد, depth of breathing هيزيد. زي ما انتم شايفين كده, the number of breaths per minute per 30 seconds increases, and the depth, it means you're taking a deep breath, not a shallow breath. That's a deep breath. Using the information, calculate the volume of air inspired in one breath from 25 seconds. One breath from 25 seconds. Volume, this is the volume. Here, 25 seconds. Type. Where do I start? I started from, this is 1.2 until 3.8. Okay? I will subtract the numbers. 3.8 minus 1.2, it will be 2.6. If you calculated it 2.5, it was still considered right. Explain the effect of exercise on the rate and the depth of breathing. Explain. Explain. خلاص, we described, we saw the graph, we want the explanation بقى. Why does the exercise increase the breathing rate? We have two parts for this question. How did it increase and why did it increase? How did the breathing rate increase? Adrenaline is released. Also, lots of carbon dioxide is released from the respiration, which increases the acidity. So the pH decreases. This is sensed by the brain, and the brain sends impulses for the muscles to contract faster. This is how it increased. But what about why did it increase? Why does the breathing increase in exercise? To supply the active muscles with extra oxygen in order to respire more and release more energy for the muscle contraction. يبقى here we have two parts for the answer. Why did it increase and how did it increase? You have to write both to take the 4 marks. Question 4, complete the sentence about the control of body temperature. The human body maintains a constant internal temperature. Maintaining constant internal environment, this is an example of homeostasis. Homeostasis. When the temperature moves away from the set point, the mechanism of what returns it to the normal or returns it to the setback to set point. When it increases, we decrease it. If it decreases, we increase it. What do we call this? We call it negative feedback. Negative feedback. If something increases, you return it back to normal. If something decreases, you return it back to normal. I want the labels for L, O, and J. Let's say all the labels. Okay, this is the hair. This is the hair. J is the hair erector muscle. L is the sweat gland opening on the outside through the sweat pore. N, it is the blood capillaries. M is the fat cells, and O, the at the edge, this is the receptors. Receptors. يبقى if I want L, O, and J, this is sweat glands, receptors, and hair erector muscles. Describe how human maintains constant body temperature when the external temperature decreases. In cold weather, how do I maintain my body temperature? Using the structures in the labels. Cold weather, what happens? Number 1, hair erector muscle contracts. So the hair will be upright, trapping a layer of warm air, which acts as an insulator. Number 2, vasoconstriction of the arterioles. It will constrict, so less blood flows to the capillaries, less loss of heat by radiation. Number 3, sweat glands do not produce sweat. Number 4, muscles in parts of your body contract and relax. This is what we call shivering, to release heat energy to warm the body. I can also start it from the very beginning. In the receptors, detect the stimulus, sends it to the sensory through the sensory neuron to the brain, and then the brain sends impulses to the motor neuron. Where will the motor neuron act? All the places we said. Blood glucose concentration is maintained at a constant set point using hormones, glucagon and insulin. What is the organ that secretes glucagon and insulin? It's the same organ. Describe the effects of glucagon on the body. Effects of glucagon. What does the glucagon do?
مثلا عندي
Effect of glucagon. Glucagon, it stimulates the breakdown of glycogen to glucose, so it increases blood glucose. Okay. Question 5. 2 cell structures found in both animal and bacterial cells. Animal and bacterial cells. اللي هم ايه بقى؟ I can say anything that's common. I can say cell membrane. I can say cytoplasm. I can say DNA. Both of them have DNA. Here it's inside the nucleus, here it's not, okay, but both of them have DNA. Why the bacteria are useful in biotechnology? Rapid reproduction rate, they reproduce very fast, okay? Um, they do not take up space. They're able to make complex molecules. No ethical issues, no ethical concerns, okay? All of these, we consider them the reasons to use bacteria in biotechnology. Genetically modified bacteria were grown in the fermenter. The number of bacteria was measured and the data are shown. On the figure, identify the lag phase. Phases of the growth curve. Lag, log, stationary, death. Where is the lag phase? At the beginning. This is the lag phase. Lag phase. Okay, he said draw an X to identify the lag phase. Draw a Y to show where the birth rate is equal to the death rate. Birth rate equal to death rate, this means the stationary phase, so it will be here. Calculate how long it takes for the number of bacteria to reduce by half after it had been in the fermenter for 24 hours. 24 hours, final 24 hours. Let's go here, 24 hours. Up. They were 10 million. When did it reduce by half? Half, and it means, which means 5 million. So it's here. It's 36. طب what does he want? How long it takes? يعني from 24 to 36. How long did it take? Okay? It will be 12 hours. 12 hours. He needs the difference. How long it took to reduce after 24, 12 hours. Describe and explain the change in the bacterial population from 24 to 50. From 24 hours to 50. What happened? It decreased. Description. What's the meaning of describe? I will tell him what happened. What happened? It decreased. This is the death phase. Death rate is more than the birth rate. طب what's the explanation بقى? Why did it decrease? Because of the limiting factors. We have limiting factors, and you will give him examples of limiting factors. For example, less space, less food, wastes will build up, less oxygen, oxygen is used up, increased temperature, which kills the bacteria. Okay? Anything that will cause death. Okay, the fermenter is kept at the optimum temperature for the bacteria. Why this is important for enzyme function? Uh, we will explain why is the temperature important, because it has to be adjusted optimum for maximum enzyme activity, because to have enough kinetic energy, more frequent collisions occur between the enzyme and the substrate. They will form enzyme substrate complex, and also if the temperature is high, it will denature the enzymes. Why the bacteria needs amino acids? Because it is like any other microorganism or any other organism. It needs amino acids to make proteins. The last question in this exam is about xerophytes. We said that we took two types of plants. Hydrophytes are the plants that live in water. Xerophytes are the plants that are adapted for the environment which has very little water available. Deserts, yeah. First, he asked me what is the meaning of adaptation. It is the change in features over time resulting from natural selection by which the organisms become suited to their environment. Figure 6.1 is a photograph of a saguaro cactus which lives in the desert. The climate in the desert is very low rainfall, very high daytime temperature. What can I see? Describe two visible adaptive features and explain how each feature is beneficial. The first thing is that the leaves are changed to spines, so I reduce the surface area for less transpiration. Less surface area for less transpiration. Okay, what else? So here the second point will be fleshy, swollen stem to store water. Store water. Table 6.1 shows some data about the stomatal density on the leaves of one plant that is not a xerophyte and three xerophyte plants. This plant is not a xerophyte. These are three xerophyte plants. Using the information, estimate the total number of stomata in an ice plant leaf with a lower surface area of 8 centimeters square. In the table, he gave you the number of stomata per millimeter square. Okay? Per millimeter square. If I want to change from centimeter to millimeter, I multiply by 10. If I change from centimeter square to millimeter square, I multiply by 10 power 2. طيب يبقى 8 centimeter square times 100 اللي هي 10 power 2 is 800 millimeter square. In the ice plant بقى, how many stomata do I have? 42 per millimeter square. طب in the 800 millimeter square, how many stomata will I have? I will do it on the calculator, cross multiplication. It will give me 33,600 stomata. Explain the data shown in the table. The oak tree, which is not a xerophyte, has more number of stomata, while all the xerophytes have a lower number of stomata. يبقى less stomata overall. Okay, ليه? To reduce transpiration. No stomata on the upper surface. Stomata are on the lower surface only. Why? To keep it away from the sun. احنا قلنا the upper surface is exposed to the sun, so it will increase the water loss. In the xerophytes, most of the stomata are on the lower leaf surface to keep it away from the sun for less transpiration. Okay, what else can I say? يبقى number 1, lower leaf surfaces are in the shade. This is why most of the stomata are on the lower surface. So they have more stomata to reduce the water loss by transpiration. I can also say that the xerophytes, all the xerophytes have less number of stomata than the oak tree, برضو to reduce the number of to reduce the amount of water loss by transpiration. The last question. There are xerophytic forests which are threatened by humans. Suggest the reasons why it is important to conserve xerophytic ecosystem. All what he needs is the importance of conservation. Maintains biodiversity, prevents extinction, maintains food chains, food webs, protects the ecosystem, maintains nutrient cycles.